We've seen the UK's commercial property markets in trouble, but what will happen to ordinary homes and flats? Now, prices have been going up and up in London, and it's become unaffordable for so many people. Teachers, nurses and others on modest salaries have long complained they can't even live in the capital. But will Brexit burst the bubble? Azhar Sukri has been taking a look.
The glitz and glamour of London. Rich foreigners have poured in billions of dollars to buy its Victorian townhouses and new apartments. The rapid rise in house prices has generated plenty of wealth, that is, for those lucky enough to own a property. But look a little closer and the streets tell a different story. Charities say they've never seen as many homeless people. For those who don't own a property, the boom in prices has put ownership out of reach. And even renting has become increasingly tough.
When I was homeless, if that was his last pound in his pocket and I needed it, he would give it to me. So for me, this is, I can give them a little something back.
The Brixton Soup Kitchen in South London is one of many charities helping those who've been squeezed out of the housing market. Tyrene is an arts graduate. She says her rent has risen so much that she has to make some hard choices, even with help from the government.
Sometimes I get full back, whereas I don't pay the rent 1 week or 2 weeks, just to make sure that I've got things in the house for the kids.
Kilburn in North London offers a glimpse into why prices have risen so much.
Many of the people who live in this newer development actually own the apartments that they live in. But the development itself has replaced an older council estate, which used to house many poorer people, and they now can't afford to live in the city.
The older flats were built in the 1960s and 70s and rented by the local council to disadvantaged families at below market rates. The new apartments are built by private companies and subsidised by the local government. But even these are beyond the reach of many, either to rent or buy.
I think one of the insidious effects is it builds a social division between people who have got on the property ladder and see year after year the price of their properties rising, and people who will never be able to get on the property ladder and are renting or in local authority accommodation.
House prices in London have risen on average by 12% a year over the last 3 years. That's one of the fastest growth rates of any major city. London is now among the least affordable cities for housing. According to Swiss banking group UBS, a skilled worker on an average wage would have to work 14 years to afford a 60 square metre flat. Only Hong Kong is more expensive by this measure. And UBS says London is the city most at risk of suffering a major drop in property prices. Many analysts now argue that the vote to leave the EU has only increased the likelihood of a property bubble bursting. If that happens, it could be good news for those who want to buy real estate. But it would also wipe out billions of dollars in wealth. And for a country that's so heavily reliant on the property market, this poses enormous economic risks.
And Azhar's back in the studio with us. Azhar, if Brexit has the unintended consequence of bringing down prices in the capital, that will help a lot of people who've been priced out.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, as we saw in the report, you know, lots of people, of course, do want to own property still. Even looking at it from the point of view of foreigners, even though without the EU, London is still a magnet for a lot of people. It's got the world's third biggest stock exchange. It's got a robust legal system. So London itself will always be in demand. And, yeah, as you say, a drop in prices could actually result in more demand, both local, from within the UK and from abroad.
It's always hard to tell, isn't it? But we've seen share prices and some of the biggest names in real estate in London dropping like a stone. House builders are dropping like a stone. Are they worried that coming out of the European Union will make life more difficult for them? Perhaps the investment in property in London not as worth it as it once was?
Well, yes, there is certainly that. I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're, let's say, from the Middle East or China or Russia, and you're just looking to park a few of your extra millions in somewhere that you're familiar with, then London is always going to be in demand. But if you're an employee of a foreign bank in London, for example, then, you know, you're going to be moving out. If your bank is moving back to Frankfurt or Paris or wherever. So it kind of depends on what sort of foreigner you are and what you're looking for in the London property market.
Right, Azhar, well, if I ever need to park a few million, I'll know where to go. Thanks very much for the advice.